Let's set a quick scene here. It's about 25 years ago, the turn of the millennium. You're young, just a kid, the youngest of a pretty large family. That family, well, to say the least, they aren't exactly the most functional. Being at home, well, it's kinda scary. Your parents, the ones who are supposed to make you feel safe, well, they're always screaming and throwing things. Your siblings aren't really around that much anymore. They're all getting older. No one's at home looking out for you. When you go to school, amidst the legion of bullying that you face, both physically and mental, things just, they don't really seem to get better. So yeah, to put it bluntly, every day of your life, you're just scared and there's no one there who seems willing, able, or that even notices just how afraid of it you all are. No one to teach you how to navigate and overcome those fears. You're alone. You don't really have friends. The world is just a nightmare. But then one day, while booting up your older brother's PlayStation 1, you negate to check the disc tray, and when naively anticipating WWF SmackDown 2 to boot up like it always has, you accidentally stumble into a brand new world, one both foreign in setting and life, but familiar in tone, one that will teach you just how to face those fears. You've just stepped into the world of survival horror. This is Resident Evil. This script isn't really a script. I might stumble over a few words. I do have a loose outline written down here, but more or less this is all coming from the heart. So if I stumble over some words, forgive me. I just marathoned the original Resident Evil Trilogy for the umpteenth time. I've probably played it like almost 100 times now. And, you know, I've decided that I talk about Resident Evil a lot. But I've never actually sat down and talked about, with any of you, just what these games mean to me. And if I have, I haven't gone in very much detail about it. So if I could just ask for a moment of your precious time, which I know, seriously, is a hot commodity nowadays, I'd like to do just that. And hopefully from this video, you learn to embrace whatever your special interest is. Devil may care who's interested in or not. The intro you just heard is 100% genuine. It was sadly my life growing up. A dark, scary, and confusing time for me. Around that period, I can remember I'd watch cartoons, or I'd read like kids' books and stuff. And I'd wonder why the characters never really had to be afraid, because I was. Why they got to come home to a world of love and safety when it seemed that no matter where I went, whether it was school, whether it was home, it was just a nightmare that I had to be forced to survive. Video games were a little bit of an escape for me. I could turn on Crash Bandicoot, for example, and I could look at the silly animal bounce on crates and collect fruits. Or I could play a WWF game and I could pedigree my brother through a table when he was home. Though, I never really thought of a video game as something I could put myself into, really find something in. Until that fateful day where I accidentally entered the Spencer estate for the first time. The dreadful music accompanied by the long, foreboding corridors and rooms, that feeling like at any moment something would burst through a door, stumble around a corner. The unpredictability of it all somehow reminded me of my own life. Walking through my house, hoping not to upset a parent who might scream at me, call me names to hurt me, or running into the woods during recess at school before anyone could see me so I wasn't beaten up and made fun of again. The unpredictable horror of Resident Evil, in a weird way, mirrored the unpredictable horror of my life and how it all felt to me as a little kid. This is also around the time I met one Jill Valentine, someone to whom most people is a video game character. Maybe even one of the most iconic video game characters of all time. But to me, Jill was a little more than that. Jill was, and as corny as this is to say, it still is, my personal hero. I remember looking at Jill as a kid, Seeing how brave she was, and how she was just as capable as all the hardened, gruff, and strong-looking men, and just thinking, wow, she's awesome. I wasn't really comfortable around a lot of the boys in my class before I had figured out a lot about myself and who I truly was. But Jill made me realize that no matter what I was just as capable. I mean, if it weren't for Jill Valentine, winter wouldn't exist. And I mean that. Seeing how Jill tackled the nightmares of the Spencer estate head on with her chin up and an unwavering never say die attitude taught me a lot about how to get through the scary things I was going through with gritted teeth and determination, never giving up, because if you give up, that's the moment you're truly defeated. Escaping the Spencer estate in Resident Evil 1 for the first time made me feel like, for the first time ever, I had accomplished something. Sure, it was just a video game, but I did it all. Even though the game, the monsters, even though all of it scared me, I did it. I did it, and it was time to do it again. Welcome to the Raccoon City Police Department, a place where I met another character of fiction who would change my life forever. Leon Scott Kennedy. Leon, to a lot of people, is the most popular horror protagonist in video game history. But to me, Leon was everything I wanted in a real friend. He was reliable, someone who would never let you down, ever, who would march through hell itself for both a friend and almost a complete stranger. Leon was trusting, nice, and felt like the kind of person who could inspire you to do the right thing just by telling you what was the right thing to do. Going through the RPD in Resident Evil 2 is one of those memories I could never let go. The gothic setting of the police station mixed with some of the most iconic tracks in the whole series to date. The RPD kind of felt like a second home to me. Sure, a home filled with flesh-eating zombies and massive Cronenbergian bioweapons that wanted to rip my innards out, but a home nonetheless. Resident Evil 1 may have taught me to face my fears with an unwavering courage, but Resident Evil 2 taught me something just as important. Sometimes, just because you won that first battle, just because you got out of the woods, doesn't mean you can't be pulled back in. And with just how up the ante is in RE2, with how higher the stakes felt, the enemy count jumping up, the types of monsters wanting to turn you into a lifeless cadaver at best, that showed me that the mess you're pulled back into can sometimes make the mess you just got out of look like child's play. Which leads me into the final game of this mushy feeling recount. A lot of people say Resident Evil 2 is what introduced us to Raccoon City, and while that may be true, it was Resident Evil 3 that really made me fall in love with good old RC. A lot of people say Resident Evil 2 is what introduced us to Raccoon City, and while that may be true, it was Resident Evil 3 that really made me fall in love with good old RC. I previously said that the RPD felt like my home away from home, but Raccoon City feels like somewhere I care just as much about as my hometown. Reuniting with Jill always makes me feel great. And while Resident Evil 3 may not progress the plot as much in terms of story details, the story of Jill Valentine's last escape from the city of the dead is, to me, the most compelling story told in the entire trilogy for one reason. Nemesis. Not because he's cool, terrifying, or badass, even though Nemi is all three of those things, but because, in the sake of this whole video being very, very personal, he reminds me of one of my parents. A dark, looming, foreboding monster who keeps track of my every movement and at every turn wants nothing more than to bring me pain and to scare me. A monster that, try as I might, I feel like I can never truly get away from. Resident Evil 3 taught me my final life lesson as a kid. To me, the most important lesson you could be taught as a child. You can always make it out. You always have a choice and you can always escape. Run from your monster or fight it, but either way, no matter what you choose, even if you do get pulled back in, you can always escape. Always fight for a better tomorrow. For yourself, and for any future loved ones. Jill's confrontation of her own personal monster time and time again culminates in an incredible escape for her, finally being able to fly off into the sunset, the hero she really is, saying so long to RC, much like I did years later in my early 20s, finally leaving my hometown and leaving that abuser behind. Even after a confrontation with them just moments before I was able to leave, they forcefully tried to stop me, and I stood up to them. I left. A choice I'm not sure I could have made without, once again, Resident Evil and Jill Valentine being there for me all those years ago to help me make that choice. Growing up, Resident Evil wasn't just a video game to me. It was the first thing I ever really learned from. The first time I saw myself in something, and as stupid as it may sound to a lot of you, Chris Redfield, Jill Valentine, Barry Burton, Rebecca Chambers, Leon Kennedy, Claire Redfield, Carlos Oliveira, all of them, for a while, they kind of felt like my only friends. At the start, I called it the world of survival horror. But it's more than that. For a weird, dorky, autistic kid 25 years ago, it was the world of self-discovery. I hope this wasn't too long-winded, and I hope my words here can allow even just one more person to be okay with throwing themselves into something that they care so much about. Or maybe even encourage someone to give these great games a shot. Still stumbling. You might even learn something about yourself. And if you too someday decide to venture to the Arclay Forest, or the 90s draped streets of Raccoon City, or maybe even the faraway reaches of eastern rural Europe, or the heart of Africa, or the Baker House, or wherever this franchise takes you, just remember one thing for me.
Hey, it's up to us to take out Umbrella.